You now have a decision. Will you stand with the kids who you're supposed to protect, or will you side with the killers bringing terror to our streets? Mr. Lyons, will you resign from ICE?
This may look like a heated exchange between a congressman and a federal official, but it's actually a stress test of institutional accountability. What's really being tested here is whether enforcement power can remain independent when political rhetoric escalates beyond evidence and process. This raises broader questions about how far executive language can go before it reshapes law enforcement culture itself, and whether career officials draw boundaries or absorb that pressure. In this video, we'll break down what this confrontation reveals about oversight, executive influence, and the constitutional tension between authority and restraint.
For 5 minutes.
A couple nights ago, I met with a woman who works as a cashier at a grocery store, and I told her I was coming to see you, Mr. Lyons, and she said, will you ask him, and she didn't want to give her name. She was terrified to give her name. But she said, when I get off my shift around midnight and I walk through the parking lot to my car, she said, if somebody rolls up in an unidentified van and gets out wearing all black and their face is covered and they don't have any identification, and they ask me to get into the van, how do I know who they are? How does she know, Mr. Lyons? How does she know if they're an ICE agent or bad guys?
Sir, ICE agents have identifiable placards on their uniforms as well as their badges representative, but you won't see ICE agents rolling through the parking lots and just snatching someone up. ICE does intelligence-driven, targeted enforcement operations.
Well, Mr. Homan and others have said that they target individuals based on the color of their skin and the accents that they speak, and that's why people are running through the fields and factories where they work. Director Lyons, last year you said in Phoenix at the Border Security Expo that you wanted to see a deportation process that was like, quote, Amazon Prime, but with human beings. Mr. Lyons, how many times has Amazon Prime shot a mom 3 times in the face?
None, sir, but you're also...
It's the square root of 0, that's right.
Yes, sir. Yeah, but if we're going to go down that route of my comment, I did say that comment. However, that comment was taken out. If you go back and watch the video, I did say that we need to be more efficient when it comes to removing individuals from the United States, because ICE doesn't detain punitively. We detain to remove. I don't want to see people in custody. At the end of my statement was, and again, to your point, it was a industry day for AI and efficiencies, but I did say at the end of it, but we deal with human beings, so we can't be like them.
And speaking
That's
of
the
human,
key part that you're leaving out.
Well, speaking of human beings, how many times has Amazon Prime shot a nurse 10 times in the back?
None.
How many times has Amazon Prime dragged a woman out of her car by her hair and then dragged her down the street?
None.
How many ICE agents have been fired for their conduct under your leadership?
Sir, I can get you that data. I'll get that back to you.
Is it more than 1?
I'm not going to speak about personnel actions, but I'll get you that data.
Can you tell us if at least, God, I hope at least 1 person has been fired for their conduct since these operations have begun? Are you telling us you can't even say 1 person's been fired?
Sir, I'm not going to talk about personnel actions, but we will get back to you.
But 2 people have been killed so far, is that right? A nurse named Preddy and a mom named Good. 2 people have been killed so far.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Lyons, will you apologize to the family of Renee Good for being called a domestic terrorist by the president and his leadership?
No, sir.
Why not?
Sir, I welcome the opportunity to speak to the family in private, but I'm not going to comment on any active investigation.
Is she a domestic terrorist?
Sir, I'm not going to comment on the investigation, and the president and Secretary Noem are elected officials. That's their right to their comments, but as career law enforcement, we won't speak to any.
Do you agree with their comments?
Sir, I'm not going to go ahead and talk about any ongoing investigation.
Will you apologize to the family of Alex Preddy for also being called a domestic terrorist?
Sir, again, I'm not going to speak to any ongoing investigation.
Mr. Lyons, your staying to lead ICE is a decision.
Sir, I'm sorry.
You're staying on to lead ICE is a decision. And I've read your background. You have a decorated career. You've served in the military. You are what I would call otherwise employable. I think most people would agree this is not the only job that you can get. But since you've been on this job, women have been dragged by their hair through our streets. A 6-year-old child battling stage 4 cancer has been deported, and it turns out he was a U.S. citizen. People are running through the fields where they work. People who've gone to the streets as allies have been shot and publicly executed. It's a decision to stay on at this point. And considering your honorable service in the past and the dishonorable acts that those who have worked for you have conducted, and the disgraceful statements that the leadership above you have said, you now have a decision. Will you stand with the kids who you're supposed to protect, or will you side with the killers bringing terror to our streets? Mr. Lyons, will you resign from ICE?
No, sir, I won't.
Why not?
Because, sir, that child that you're showing right there, the men and women of ICE took care of him when his father abandoned him and ran from
Gentleman's
law enforcement.
time has expired.
You never should have gone into
Gentleman's time has
custody.
expired. I recognize the gentleman from Mississippi. A guest for
The room fell silent in the seconds after the question landed. Mr. Lyons, will you resign from ICE? It was not shouted. It was not theatrical. It was direct. And it carried the full weight of everything that had just unfolded. Moments earlier, Representative Eric Swalwell had described a midnight parking lot, a grocery store cashier, a woman too frightened to give her name. She asked a simple question. If someone in an unmarked van, dressed in black, face covered, no visible identification, approaches her and orders her inside, how is she supposed to know who they are? That image, a lone worker walking to her car under dim lights, became the moral frame of the hearing. Not policy language, not statistics, not agency charts, a human being, alone, afraid. Acting ICE Director Lyons responded with procedure, identifiable placards, badges, intelligence-driven enforcement. He rejected the image of agents snatching someone up from parking lots. He emphasized efficiency, process, structure. But then the hearing turned. Swalwell referenced Lyons' own words from a previous industry event, comparing deportation efficiency to Amazon Prime, but with human beings. Lyons acknowledged the comment, said it had been taken out of context, said he had emphasized that human beings are not packages, that ICE does not detain punitively, but to remove. Yet the metaphor lingered in the chamber like smoke, efficiency, speed, optimization. And then came the sharpest exchange. How many times has Amazon Prime shot a mom 3 times in the face? Swalwell asked. None. How many times has Amazon Prime shot a nurse 10 times in the back? None. How many ICE agents have been fired for their conduct under your leadership? No direct answer. Data would be provided later. Personnel actions would not be discussed. 2 individuals, Swalwell said, had lost their lives during operations. Names were spoken. Families invoked. And then came another question. Would the director apologize to families who had been labeled as domestic terrorists by national leadership? Again, no public apology. Not in this forum, not during an active investigation. And in that exchange, the hearing became something larger than a partisan confrontation. It became a test of institutional accountability. Because in democratic systems, power is never abstract. It wears uniforms, it signs memos, it stands behind microphones and answers questions under oath. Lyons' refusal to resign was not unexpected. Leaders rarely concede in public hearings, but his answer, "No, sir, I won't," was more than personal resolve. It was a declaration that the agency's mission, as he sees it, must continue, despite the controversy swirling around it. He defended his officers. He invoked care provided to a sick child when a parent fled. He framed ICE as an organization operating within law, within duty, within necessity. Swalwell framed it differently. He described women dragged through streets. A young patient removed from the country and later revealed to be a citizen. People running from work sites, public operations ending in fatal outcomes. 2 narratives collided in that chamber, one of enforcement, one of excess, one of duty, one of damage. This is what oversight looks like in real time, raw, uncomfortable, unsparing. Congressional hearings are not courtrooms. They do not determine guilt. They do not deliver verdicts. But they reveal fault lines. They expose tension between authority and accountability, between policy language and lived experience. The deeper question raised by this hearing is not simply whether one director should resign. It is whether the machinery of enforcement in America still commands the confidence of the people it governs. When a cashier is afraid to say her own name, when efficiency metaphors overshadow human complexity, when questions about discipline receive procedural deflection. Trust begins to fray. Government power is legitimate only when it is restrained by transparency and answerable to those it affects. Law enforcement operates on authority granted by the public, not above it. And in moments like this, the American system is stress tested. Is there meaningful internal accountability? Are investigations truly independent? Do leaders separate political rhetoric from operational judgment? These are not partisan questions. They are structural ones. Swalwell ended with a moral fork in the road. Stand with the vulnerable or stand with those who bring fear into communities. Lyons answered with institutional loyalty, with the defense of his workforce, with a refusal to abandon the post. History will judge which vision aligns more closely with American ideals. But for viewers, the responsibility is immediate. Democracy does not function on autopilot. Oversight hearings matter because they force power to speak aloud, to justify, to defend, to withstand scrutiny. Tonight, we witness that friction, the collision of narrative and counter-narrative, the human face behind policy. And whether you believe the agency acted within its mandate or beyond it, one truth remains. Accountability is not optional in a republic. It is essential. The questions asked in that chamber do not end when the gavel falls. They continue in communities, in voting booths, in the quiet conversations between neighbors who want safety without sacrificing dignity. Stay engaged, stay informed. And if you believe in holding power to account on every side, subscribe to Liberty Report USA. Support our work to expose the truth.